How much do you feel for a leader it is important to lead by example?
Leadership is broad, right? It's across all
Hmm.
spectrums of
Hmm.
industry, but
Yes.
it is the ability of that leader to be effective.
Welcome back to the LoopLynks Show. Today's guest brings a perspective forged over more than 3 decades across corporate human resources and executive leadership in the United States Army. Brigadier General retired Twanda Young.
Mine is very simple. I want to make better leaders for society.
But it also tells me that it just didn't shape your confidence. Welcome back to the LoopLynks Show, where we explore the journey of leaders who don't just build careers, they reshape how leadership itself is understood. Today's guest brings a perspective forged over more than 3 decades across corporate human resources and executive leadership in the United States Army. Brigadier General retired Twanda Young has led in environments where discipline is non-negotiable. The stakes are very real, and leadership is tested under pressure. But what makes her work stand out today is how she's translated all these experiences into something broader and helping organizations not just develop leadership, but fully optimize it through her own company that is LT3 Leads. This is a conversation about discipline, about empathy, strategy, and execution, and what it really takes to lead transformation at scale. So let's get right to it. Ms. Young, welcome to the LoopLynks Show. It's such a pleasure to have you here, man.
It's such an honor to be here with you today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you. Well, Ms. Young, I wanted to just start at the beginning, because leadership journeys like yours, they don't start in boardrooms. You've spent 3 decades in human resources and especially your time in the Army. So we all wanted to know what was it first that drew you towards, leadership and people development?
Well, I will tell you, I'm a little snot-nosed girl from Darlington, South Carolina, and I am the baby of 7. And my
Okay.
mom, Pastor Annie Lou Williamson, is my epitome of my example of leadership. So my leadership acumen and cultivation started early when I was a teen going into college as a first generational student. And she had me work in the fields and in the tobacco and cotton fields, if any of your audience knows about those types of agriculture. And that was to teach me a hard, earnest day of living. But I
Okay.
learned from there that, as I was hoeing these long rows in the hot sun of South Carolina, I skipped a couple of them, right? I was supposed to remove the grass from around it. I was supposed to make sure that there was no stagnation of the plants and things. But I lowered my standard and skipped a few because I didn't think anyone was watching. And my
Mm-hmm.
mom saw that I was not doing my job to standard and called me all the way back to the beginning of the road to start over. And she told me in that moment that has been a lifelong philosophy of mine was it doesn't matter who's watching you. Learn to do right anyway. Stay on the right side of right. And if you don't do things to standard, you create a substandard, which becomes your new standard. So that sparked my interest and I guess cultivated how I lead and why I think leadership is an honor and a privilege to be able to lead people.
Wow, that's a wonderful anecdote. Thank you so much. And if only more people, not only leaders, if only more people could understand that they should put in their heart and soul and have a high level of integrity, even though no one's watching. Thank you so much for that. And the idea that a correct leader can actually change someone's entire life trajectory, it's simple, but it carries a lot of weight. So your military experience must have shaped, to a certain extent, that perspective in a very specific way. So we just wanted to know, how did your time in the Army, shape your understanding of discipline, of accountability, and team cohesion as a whole?
Well, coming from a very structured family
Hmm.
environment, going into the military was kind of like, easing into another family setting,
Hmm.
because discipline is important. Consistency is truly important, and being able to build teams is tremendously important, especially when you're going to war, right? I don't want to wonder whether my battle buddy to my right or to my left got their training down, know how to shoot a weapon, know how to hit the target. I need to have that confidence that you have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do your job and do it well. So for me, the military offered me that structure that I was used to, but it also reinforced that a leader doesn't stand alone. While I may think I'm all that in a bag of chips and walk on water and spit out gold, all those things, I can't do anything successfully alone. All your CEOs that you have that are out there, be male or female, they understand that the cohesion of a team, the diversity of a team, is what is the fuel that makes a team successful. And that a leader learning to be able to bring all of that diversity together and be able to utilize it in a way is what makes the mission be able to be successful and complete. So in the military, I learned how to go through the norming and storming of team development. And I also learned how to be more of a critical thinker in how I approach things. I now, in my civilian capacity, learning from those experiences, we teach at LT3 Leadership Solutions about the SID approach to leadership, being a strategic thinker, and what is your
Hmm.
strategic focus that you're going after for that goal? What is the intentional commitment and return on investment that you plan to gain of the team being successful or your organization being successful? And then what is the decisive and disciplined decision you need to make an informative decision? Because in the military, your decisions, lives depend on it. No different
Correct.
than in the civilian sector, that if you don't put out a reputable product, or making sure that you are doing everything necessary to make sure that that product is safe or that service provides a value, you're impacting the lives of your clients. Thus, you're impacting the lives of community and society.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. And do you feel that, different people are motivated differently? And as a leader, one has to identify what motivates whom and, kind of channelize all that towards a common objective. Is that something that you've felt over the years of leadership that you've experienced?
I think of it a little bit differently. And my perspective is I have to motivate myself. I have to be motivated that that is a goal that I want to accomplish, or that is a job I want to obtain, or a skill I want to pick up. That to me is the inner work that I have to do as a person. Now, the leader can help inspire me. They can show me their motivation, which will help me motivate myself. But that to me is an internal mechanism that I have to have myself coming to the table. So to me, a leader helps motivate, inspire, and leads from the front. And by doing that, they're now helping their team, their organization, whomever they're mentoring, to be able to have that, bring that inner motivation out, that inner drive of wanting to be successful within themselves outward. And then they can help cultivate that. But I think it first starts with the person.
Okay. Well, just want to know, was there a certain defining moment during your time in the Army, in your Army career, that truly changed how you personally lead? Maybe, an anecdote would be able to shed more light of that, something that you could share with our audience.
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to. When I first came into the military, I was stationed at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, as a brand new spanking second lieutenant. And during that time, all lieutenants, they call us with milk behind our ears. So because we don't know anything, right? We know school, but we don't know the true essence of leadership and leading people. And I remember meeting my first senior leader. And the expectation that I had was that that leader was going to mentor, coach, teach, and guide me to be the best leader that I could be in the military and for the people that I had the honor and privilege to lead. And as I had conversation and interaction with that leader, our conversations traversed into longevity. What was going to be Tia's longevity in the military, and what were my
Mm-hmm.
aspirations? And I poured
Mm-hmm.
my heart out to him. And in that conversation, I came away dejected, belittled, demeaned, and just downtrodden because he told me that I had no right to be in the military and that he was going to do everything within his power to ensure I didn't make it to the next level, which was first lieutenant. Well, think about that for a moment. Sit in that. How many leaders have you met, you've engaged, that have told you you can't do it? You don't have the intellectual capacity to do it. You'll never meet that goal that you know within your heart of hearts, you know within your gut that that is an aspiration you can meet, if not exceed. So I walked away from that experience remembering to myself that I never wanted anyone to ever walk away from an experience with me as a leader feeling belittled, dejected, and downtrodden. And from that experience, I learned that I had to learn the S word. And I know your audience may be saying, so what is the S word? What is it? Tell me, what's the S word?
Yes,
I
we are.
had to learn strategy. I had to
Mm-hmm.
be strategically focused in what I needed to do to get around this particular leader to still meet my goal, not sit in my own uh, pity party or feeling that okay, I'm playing the victim. It was what did I have to do to ensure that I was going to be the leader necessary still to give my people the resources they needed, to make the connections I needed, to make sure that we were successful in our mission. So I invoked a strategy of dealing with him. And by invoking that strategy of reaching out to people within my network, reaching out to other senior leaders and a board of, and I call them a board of instructors that helped me figure out what I needed to do to get past him. And that has been my strategy throughout my 33-year career. You know, when you said Brigadier General retired Twanda Young, well, to get to this rank, less than 1% make it to the rank of Brigadier General. 0.7% make it as a female. Even lesser percent make it as a female and a Black female or a female of color to get to this rank. So strategy and critical thinking and being able to put those things in place and then executing it to get to where I needed to be the leader my people needed me to be, has always been a part of my, I would say, legacy of leadership in the military and now in the civilian capacity because of that one incident that I call the base of rappel tower incident, because we were standing literally at the base of rappel tower when this happened.
Okay. Well, that does sound nasty, the experience, but it also tells me that it just didn't shape your confidence. It actually changed you as a person and how you show up for other people as a leader. And that's remarkable. That's very good. So let's just talk about for a second about leadership under pressure, ma'am, because I feel that that's where the difference between the regulars and the exceptional show. So, in a high stakes environment, what do you think, separates effective leaders from people who are just managing a certain organization or a space just by virtue of their title, as opposed to those who really have the leadership mettle?
I think that's where a true leader is tested. That's when you see whether you are a true leader or not, or whether you're just doing things as you shared. Are you doing things just in formality to say, I'm doing these things as a leader? That is in a crisis is when true leaders show up. And I forget who coined that phrase, but for me, when I was, uh, I'll give you an example, COVID-19, I had the task of leading and putting together a task force in very short order to help combat COVID. We had to pull together medical augmentation units to help put them out in the fields and in the communities to help civilian doctors deal with this nasty disease. Well, that
Hmm.
required that I had to pull together soldiers and civilians and contractors to develop the plan, to get the people, to deploy them to locations where they needed to be, all while we all, not just me, but the people that I was leading, were dealing with their family members dealing with COVID,
Hmm.
their mothers and fathers and their children and their wives and their husbands and loved ones dealing with COVID at that time. I think that's when a leader has to step back and look at the mirror and say, what is truly my job in this space, which I had to do. I had to work them long hours, but I was working there with them. I had to explain to them the importance and the magnitude of the tasks that we were given and how valuable they were in helping be successful in this effort. So you got to make sure that your people understand their value and they understand their role that they're playing in this particular task to get completed. I also had to be very empathetic that there are times when I was going to have to let some of them go early, or I had to work them late, but I needed to explain why we were working. People want to know why they're doing what they're doing and what is the outcome of me putting all my time, my effort,
Hmm.
and energy in doing this. Yes, I'm coming to work. I expect a paycheck, but it's so much more profound when I understand the why of it all. So during crisis moments, this is when leaders need to be emotionally intelligent and aware not only of themselves, but that they have garnered relationships with their people, that they know their people. They know when they need to let Sally off. They know when they can work John a little longer. But being able to bring the Ohana, I say, which is a family, together to let them know that you're actually a leader who is human, that you're not all the way up here and they're down here, is that you're on the same team, shoulder to shoulder, fighting for the same ideas and principles to be able to meet whatever that mission that you're going after. But that's when you see whether a leader is a critical thinker. That's when you see whether a leader can deal with crises and how do they go through their thought process. That to
Hmm.
me is when you see whether a leader has what I call a P3 mentality. Do they have the persistence that's
Hmm.
necessary to keep going after that particular goal? Do they have the perseverance for the ebbs and flows that are going to come in the decisions that have to be made, on the
Hmm.
spot decisions that can impact lives? Do they have
Okay.
the perseverance to do it? And then do they have the patience with the process to allow the process to work out and to be able to maneuver in that space to help people understand, here's the direction we're going, here's why we're going in the direction, and here's the outcomes we're going to gain if we stay consistent and focus on our efforts.
What? That's a wonderful answer, Ms. Young. There's two things I picked up from your narration of the entire the entire um, experience that you've gained and what you've discovered in leadership. First thing, that you were with your team the whole time. People were working long hours, but you were there with them regardless. So I feel personally, and I'm just wanted to check this with you, how much do you feel for a leader it is important to lead by example? You know, because I heard someone tell me this, that I would never ask someone to do something that I would not be able to do myself. And that kind of stuck with me through my entire lifetime. So just, your way in on that.
I agree. I'm not going to ask someone to do something I'm not going to do. Uh, but I also understand that as a leader, I'm not the expert in everything.
Mhm.
That's why we have
Yes,
subject matter
yes, given
experts
that,
that come
yeah.
on our team to help us be able to put more minds on a problem to get a better solution. I am a believer, though, that in order to show people that it can be done and to help guide and facilitate that effort, I need to be in the trenches with them. I need to be in that foxhole with them so that they
Exactly.
know that they're not on an island of Patmos, as I call it, by
Mhm.
themselves, that you're just
Yes.
a taskmaster, you just delegate everything out. You got to be able to have that trust. That to me is where trust is built. That if I'm rolling up my sleeves, if I'm asking the right open ended questions about things, it shows you that I'm interested in what you're doing, that I showed that what you're doing and what you're bringing to the table has value, but it also shows that we're in this together. And when you're doing something together and you both have skin in the game, it's easier for us to collaborate, for there to be
Correct.
compromise, for us to be accommodating to each other, and to be able to even have some good, constructive conflict on things to be able to get the best result we can. So it's extremely important to me. That's why the Army's thing is lead from the front.
Correct.
The Rangers' creed is follow me. Why follow me? Because I'm leading us to where we need to go. But in order for me to lead us, I understand as a leader that I need your intellectual thoughts. I need your ideas. I don't need an echo chamber of yes people. I need people
Correct.
that are going to test and challenge and stretch my thought process as to where we need to go, to then give me enough information to make informative decisions on what is the next steps in the way ahead.
Correct. I couldn't agree more. And I feel that those kind of leaders are a rare breed, leading from the front, being in the trenches with them and motivating them alongside. Another thing that I noticed was you mentioned about being appreciated. I feel that goes a long way. And for the person to know why they're showing up, of course, they're getting a paycheck and there are a certain number of hours that they have to spend, even if in a non crisis situation. But do you feel appreciation can make all the difference?
Yeah, I think the acknowledgement of someone's value is the most way that you can show appreciation. I'll share this story with you to give you an example of what I mean and how impactful it can
Correct.
be as a part of your leadership legacy. When I was a
Yes,
colonel
ma'am.
and I was the HR director for the Army Reserve for over 299,000 soldiers and their families, and we held trainings at our unit, and we had people coming in to take part in that training. I went into the training classroom one day, and these were junior NCOs, non-commissioned officers that
Mhm.
were in there for the training. And I walked in and introduced myself, and I said, "Hey, while you're here, come on to my office if you have a moment, and let's talk about where you are, where you want to go, some leadership, do a leadership development moment with you." And I had only one out of a class about 20. I only had one that had the gumption and the fortitude to do that. Well, when he came to my office, there was a lieutenant colonel I hadn't seen in a long time. And you know how it is when you haven't seen someone, you're excited. And so the lieutenant colonel thought that I was going to invite him into to my office to jaw jack
Mhm.
with them and have conversation and catch up on what things have been going on in our both of our careers. And the junior NCO thought I was going to make him wait. Well, I did the reverse. I told the
Whoa.
lieutenant
Okay.
colonel to wait. I invited the junior NCO in, and when that junior NCO entered my office, there was tears in his eyes. So of course, I'm thinking something's wrong. What's happening? Did I say something wrong? Did somebody do something to you? Talk to me. And as I asked him those questions, he said, "No, ma'am, everything's fine." He said, it brings joy to my heart that you didn't put me below the lieutenant colonel, that you saw my value was just as valuable as his, and you brought me in first." And we sat down and we talked about his career and things going on in his life. I got to know him a little bit better. Now, fast forward to about a year ago on LinkedIn, that now full-fledged NCO is reaching back out to me saying, "Hey, ma'am, you probably don't remember who I am, but I was that junior NCO that you allowed to come into your office first. We sat down, we talked about things, about my career, about my family, my likes, my dislikes, and things to make me a better leader." He said, "So now I just wanted to share with you, I'm now NCO, and that's how I treat my people, and that's how I lead now." Think
Now, that's a
about that.
perfect
That one
example.
incident of showing
Yes.
someone that you valued them and that they were no less than because of rank and position. Now is how he's cultivating his leadership and how he's teaching other leaders that are going out in society and in communities. That to me is legacy. That to me is leadership. That to me is impact.
Absolutely. That's amazing. The kind of ripple effect that one single action caused is phenomenal. Ms. Young, I imagine at some senior levels, some of the biggest challenges are not really visible on the surface to leaders, especially about themselves. You know, we just wanted to know what are the common blind spots that you have perceived that leaders may have about their own leadership style, or how they are being able to or not being able to motivate people, how people perceive them. Some blind spots that people often exhibit.
There's many. I call those leadership traps. One of the ones I would say is ego,
Okay.
thinking that you are more than what you are, or putting yourself on a pedestal
Correct.
above other people and feeling that your position or the rank, if you're in the military, that in itself gives you the ability and the authority to use your power in any way you want. Most times, some use it in a very manipulative way to get what they want. The other trap is not developing and sharpening your own craft because you feel that you are the expert in the field. I'm a believer that there aren't any experts. If there is an expert, then to me, that means that you are not pushing yourself to be a continuous, lifelong learner, to be curious. I'd rather be called a subject matter expert as opposed to an expert, because that says that I understand that my industry topic or my niche is always evolving, and I am the type of leader that is always going to go after trying to enhance my leadership acumen, cultivate more self-awareness, and learn and be better on a daily consistent basis.
Correct. Absolutely. Here at LoopLynks, man, we talk a lot about connecting ideas different across different sectors, different industries. So, how do you feel your work reflects the importance of cross-sector leadership cohesion or thinking or exchanging ideas?
Well, I'm a believer that, from my perspective, more minds on a problem will give you better results, right? Because now you have varying perspectives that can be considered by that leader to make a more informed decision. The other is that leadership is broad, right? It's across all
Mm-hmm.
spectrums of
Mm-hmm.
industry, but
Yes.
it is the ability of that leader to be effective, to be able to communicate with clarity, to be able to share ideas and vision, giving the people the vision of where they're going and why it's important, regardless of any industry that you're in. And the beauty that I like about LoopLynks is that it brings amalgamation of leaders together across industry spectrum and be able to sit down and have substantive conversations and dialogue on things that are going to move the needle to help better them as leaders in their respective industry. It's a place coming together of sharing ideas, mentorship occurs, that networking that's necessary to help us stay at top of mind and to be able to collaborate on different partnerships. That's all housed in what LoopLynks provides from my perspective. It's a
Yes,
great
ma'am, it does.
forum.
Mhm. Absolutely. And mentorship, exchanging ideas sure goes a long way. Now, there's a term that we're hearing a lot these days, and it's leadership optimization, and we're just not able to define it correctly. What is your perspective on leadership optimization? What do you feel it means in, hands-on practice?
My definition of it would be being able to utilize all resources that are available to you to bring those resources together, to guide and facilitate the utilization of those resources to enhance and get the best informed outcome you can based on those resources that you have at the time. So to optimize yourself is always, again, you're going above and beyond what is necessary or the norm that people are expecting. You have your own internal standard that is driving you to push to be better, always looking to be better, whether that is in how you speak, how you write, how you engage, how you articulate, all of those things, optimizing your capabilities, your knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to be the best tool in the toolkit for your organization and for the team you get the honor and privilege to lead.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And, we've gotten to know about this idea that you have about subtracting what doesn't really matter, instead of constantly adding more. And that's extremely practical. I found that to be very practical advice, and it's very often overlooked. So, many organizations assume that, they're doing it right. So, is there something that you could advise us on that, you can identify certain things that this is something that you could just subtract? Is there a certain mantra or something of that sort that people could just identify that, certain things should just not be dwelt upon, or they could just be subtracted from the entire leadership equation?
I think one of the silent killers of leadership excellence is perfectionism.
Hmm.
And perfectionism, I've had those little monsters on my shoulders. It almost cost me my career of being a
Okay.
perfectionist, where I was pushing my team to the point of no return, where my people didn't want to work with me. They didn't want to have anything honestly to do with me because anything that they provided was never good enough. So understanding when good enough is good enough, and that you're striving for perfection to get to excellence, but that's a goal, that's you're striving to keep you motivated. Back to our previous conversation of what is that internal drive is, yeah, I'm reaching for a certain aspiration of where I want to be, but I also know when good enough is good enough, and that I need to move from there and not become stagnant to move to the next level. And I think leaders, at least from my experience, I was the type of leader in my younger days where, it had to be perfect. All the I's had to be dotted, all the T's had to be crossed. And if there was one thing out of place, then I returned it. What was I doing? I was creating busy work for my
Correct.
people to make me
Mhm.
feel that I was leading. I was creating chaos and consternation within the teams because now I'm your subordinates, that they would say in the military, but I would say people that work with you, those junior and emerging leaders, they'll want to emulate the leader that they see. And if they see that's how I'm leading and they think that that is getting the results, it's trickling down effect. They're going to do
Mhm.
the same thing to their people. Now, what have I done? I've created a climate and a culture within the organization that is toxic, that is stagnant, that there's no ability for growth to happen. And that's not leading, that's ego driving.
Absolutely. Very well put. Absolutely. Love the way you articulated that, man. Now, on a more, individual level, is there a certain leadership myth that you personally strongly disagree with?
A leadership myth. Well, I teach conflict management and leadership development at Bowie State University at the graduate level. And in our leadership class, we talk about, are leaders born or are leaders made?
Correct.
I would say it's both. I'm a leader who is born, and I'm made over time through my experiences, through the knowledge gained, through my abilities to craft and sharpen my skill. So it's kind of like an oxymoron question, because we have many discussions that leaders, are born, they're just born with it. No, I think it has to be cultivated. Yes, I'm born as a person, but I am cultivating my leadership acumen over time.
Wonderful insight there. And on a on a more personal level for yourself, we talked about legacy a little bit, and through LT3 Leadership Solutions, you're also developing so many other leaders who will in future create other leaders. It's kind of a ripple effect, a wave. So you're also shaping how they're thinking about themselves. So what kind of a long-term impact or a legacy that you want to leave behind?
Mine is very simple. I want to make better leaders for society. And to do that, I need to coach, mentor, and guide and train them. And we do all of that through LT3 Leadership Solutions. We're getting ready to roll out a new Sovereign Leader Transformational Program 6-month intensive. And it's about
Okay.
helping entrepreneurs and leaders be able to get a solid foundation. That to me is the key of leadership, is that you have to have a solid foundation, and that foundation starts with your own self-awareness and cultivating your own knowledge about who you are as a leader. Then you know how you show up. And when you show up as a leader, you should be an atmosphere changer. It should be where when you walk in the room, people know who you are without anyone knowing your name, because you carry yourself in a way, not in an arrogance, but you carry yourself with such a countenance that people understand that you're about sharing value. You're about making sure that you give a hand up to people that need it in order to help them be better leaders. But at the end of the day, if we had, think about it for a moment, if we had a community and a society of better leaders who are emotionally, intelligently aware about themselves as leaders, to then be able to impart to other leaders value, to me, that's a better community that my grandkids, if I ever have any, that my grandkids will grow up into, that my children will be able to live through. That's to me is my legacy. There's a poem by Linda Ellis called The Dash. And in that poem, it talks about not the day that someone was born and not the day that someone dies. It is the dash in between that matters and that speaks to the legacy that your life leads. And that's what my dash means to me. I want my dash to speak to the legacy that I was about building leaders to be better leaders for society. Doing that through sharing, connecting, educating, empowering, and allowing them to flourish.
Okay. Well, that's a vision that we do share at LoopLynks, and we talk about leadership, not just being about what you've built for your lifetime, but what you leave behind, the kind of impact that continues way after that you've gone. So when you look at leaders, you've worked with over your entire lifetime, your experience, what what are the key indicators that could tell you that someone has really been, transformed as a leader?
Their actions. It's very simple. Their actions. Actions speak louder than words. It is your video matching your audio, is what we would say. My friend and I, Command Sergeant Major Irish Williams, is always saying, I can talk a whole lot. I can pontificate on many things, but look at the body of work, which is about what LoopLynks is about looking at, is what has your body of work in that respective industry produce? And what is that impact that goes well beyond you being in that position as a leader? For the military, we are moved from one position to another position every 2 to 3 years. So you only have a minute time to make an impact while you're in that position.
Correct.
What lives on after you move from that position? When you engage someone, are they changing? So you can tell by how someone is doing actions, and if that is matching what they're doing, but also about their curiosity about things, of what they want to change and grow and become. All of that to me are indicators that says that Tia is dedicated to it. She's pounding, keeping pounding on the pavement of that, back to that P3 mentality of being persistent about our goal, persevering, and that perseverance and that patience with the process is where growth happens. Where when I don't get it right, but I keep going after it to learn the lesson I needed to learn from that experience, and then I do it differently. When I seek out a board of advisors and having people where when I may have been a kind of leader that, my way or the highway, nobody can tell me whether, that I'm wrong or that the empress or emperor doesn't have clothes on. But now I'm seeking out advisement. I'm taking that in, I'm chewing on it, I'm digesting it, and then I'm applying it through my actions that people can see that there's change in my character, there's change in how I engage and treat people. Those things might seem small and insignificant, but to me, those things speak volumes to the kind of leader
Absolutely.
that you are.
I could not agree more. I concur with that 100%. Actions are the truest indicators of transformation. And if finally you could leave our audience with, one belief that they have about leadership and transformation, something that they could carry forward, what would that belief be? Something that they could, just to take away from this conversation about leadership and transformation.
The biggest thing I would share with them, and I think I shared it earlier, but I'll reiterate it, is that you have to have your own internal standard. And when you lessen that standard, you now create a substandard, which becomes your new standard. And that new standard, which is a substandard, will always be lower than the excellence and the ability in which you have to lead. Your people deserve a leader who understands that leadership is a responsibility and that it is an honor and a privilege that we get to lead people and impact people's lives for the better. So cherish that, protect that, and never abuse it.
Fantastic. Well, what stands out from this conversation is that leadership isn't a fixed skill. It's a continuous process of refinement, of getting better. And it's also about discipline, but then about empathy also, because people do matter, about strategy and also self-awareness. And above all, staying committed to growth, even when the path isn't comfortable and you're not even getting immediate results. Well, Ms. Young, thank you so much for joining us here at LoopLynks. And it was a pleasure. And on a personal note, it was great learning from you. Thank you so much. And to everyone listening out there, if this episode made you think differently about leadership, about transformation, about how you treat people, share it with someone who's building or leading something of their own. Thank you so much, and have a nice evening ahead.